What's up, Savvy Expats? Today, we're going to be breezing through 30 questions to ask yourself before moving to the Philippines. A lot of these questions are common sense, so we'll be going through them fast. Alright, without wasting time, let's get into it. So the first and most simple question to ask yourself is, where do I want to live? 3 of the most quintessential places for expats moving to the Philippines for the first time is Manila, Cebu City, and Davao. Either you choose between these 3 cities or you're set on living in a small town provincial area. If the latter is the case, then I suggest to pinpoint what you're looking for in a province. Do you want to have access to a beach? Do you still want to be relatively near a city? What services and amenities do you want in your reach? These are all noteworthy questions to ask yourself. And that leads me to question number 2. What do I want to be near? If you want everything from your Western lifestyle to be accessible to you, then I suggest living in one of the 3 cities that I mentioned. You have to consider whether or not you still want accessibility to good hospitals, Western restaurants, and modern conveniences. If you do, but you don't want to live in a city, then I suggest living just outside of a major city in the province. Most provinces are just a couple minutes outside of the city while still being a world's difference away from the city life. Not only should you take into consideration your healthcare situation, but also your active life. Do you want to be near parks? Do you want to be near pedestrian-friendly areas for jogging and biking? Or what sort of grocery stores do you want near you? Moving on to the third question, what am I leaving behind? Of course, you don't want to get too caught up in the life you want in the Philippines and completely forget about the life you have at home. Are you leaving behind family, property, or anything that's valuable to you? Do you still have a future or a career that you like that you don't want to leave quite yet in your home country? So it goes without saying, but it must be determined what you'll leave behind for the Philippines. As the saying goes, absence makes the heart grow fond. Perhaps you may want all the perks of living in the Philippines right now, but once you get here, you may miss a couple of the things that you have from back home. Just something to consider. Now for question number 4, what are the things that I absolutely refuse to deal with? Before moving to the Philippines, it's important to establish beforehand what you will not put up with here. Though it may sound like minor inconveniences to others, you only know yourself and what personally bugs you. So if you simply can't deal with crowing roosters, loud sounds, barking dogs, a highly congested area, smog, traffic, poverty, you name it, establish these thoughts beforehand. This will help you to further understand what exactly you're looking for a place to reside in, and also what things you want to avoid when you're finding a new place. Though these are inconveniences that are easily glossed over by most visitors, when you live with these things on a day-to-day basis, it becomes more difficult to deal with. Now for the 5th question to ask yourself, do I get bored easily? If the answer is yes, be sure to find a place that offers many activities that you enjoy at that. If you like spending your time biking, search for a place that's biker friendly. If you like spending time on the beaches, find a place with a variety of beaches near you. For some expats, life in the Philippines can grow old quickly and the excitement can die down. So to keep things interesting, find places that will best suit your hobbies and entertainment needs. Now for the 6th question to ask yourself, in what ways will the Philippines provide me a better life? Aside from the cost of living, determine what makes the Philippines an ideal place to move for you. Why not Mexico? Why not South America? Why not Thailand? Why not Bali? What makes the Philippines unique for you, and how will this country give you a better life? Will you feel more at peace? Do you like the people, or is it because of relationship reasons? By identifying these reasons, your why of moving here will carry you through any of the culture shocks and difficulties of settling down that you'll experience here. Now for the 7th question to ask yourself, is the healthcare adequate enough for me? To put it simply, the healthcare in the Philippines for most Westerners is not up to par. Many Westerners are hesitant to entrust their lives to the healthcare in the Philippines, God forbid anything go wrong. You may even have heard of stories of hospitals refusing to give medical treatment if a down payment can't be made. All in all, the public hospitals, especially in the provinces, are not as good. But as for the hospitals in the major cities of the Philippines, they're well equipped with modern health facilities and international standard healthcare. Yes, it's more expensive, but you can't put a price on your health. Now for the 8th question, which is also the most simplistic question, why do I want to move to the Philippines? Are you sick of life in your country? Are you moving for your partner? Or do you find the Philippines to be your ideal place to be? Once again, it's crucial to remember your why for moving to the Philippines. More likely than not, your first few months of moving to the Philippines will catch you off guard and it may be difficult to adjust to life here. But if you remember why you moved here in the first place, your transition will be much smoother. smoother. Now for the 9th question to ask yourself, will I feel lonely? Even if you're moving with or to a loved one, you're still going to be in a country without built relationships. Be it being away from close family and friends, loneliness may ensue. You'll no longer be talking to the people that you're used to talking to on a daily basis as often. You'll be far from your home family and the gatherings you used to attend. So this is an important question to ask yourself, as many expats have experienced this in the past. If you do have a partner here, however, I don't believe loneliness will be as bad. It's really just a matter of adjusting. Now moving on to the 10th question to ask yourself, why am I leaving my country? No matter who you are, there's got to be a reason or several reasons why you're leaving your country for the Philippines. Whether it be financial reasons, or you don't like what your society has come to, or politics, there's got to be a reason why you're leaving, and many expats consider this before moving to the Philippines. Now for question number 11, do I have enough patience? Life in the Philippines is very slow paced, much slower pace than you're used to. Paperwork takes forever, the lines are almost always long, traffic can last up to hours, and service can even be slow. So it's important to ask yourself these questions, because if you can't deal with these pre-existing inconveniences of the Philippines, then this place may not be for you. Now for the 12th question to ask yourself, what goals do I have for my life in the Philippines? When moving to the Philippines, life can get tasteless if you have no sense of direction of where you want to be and what you want to do. Do you want to be semi-retired and work on your own business here? Do you want to cultivate a garden? Do you want to be more physically fit? Do you want to serve the community? All of these goals are things that will keep your life in check when moving to the Philippines. Moving on to the 13th question to ask yourself, do I have other streams of income to support my life abroad? It's extremely helpful to have a recurring source of income coming in when you're moving abroad to the Philippines. Though most people rely on Social Security and their pension alone when moving to the Philippines, it of course would help a lot more if you have a recurring source of revenue coming in. Not to mention, an extra stream of income will help take care of great things like eating out, going for a massage, visiting attractions, and checking out resorts and whatnot. Now for the 14th question, am I prepared for the sight of poverty? No matter where you plan on living, you will inevitably come across the sight of poverty in the Philippines. Some expats can't handle seeing it on a daily basis, and others have to help everyone that they come across. So it's important to address whether or not you can handle the sight of poverty in the Philippines, because it's a normal part about living here. Moving on to the 14th question to ask yourself, will I still crave Western food? If you're the type that likes to have your Western foods like pizza, burgers, pasta, chicken wings, all that jazz, then I highly suggest moving to a major city in the Philippines or living near international grocery stores. Obviously, if you're living out in the province, there's less accessibility to foods that you have from home. But if you're living in a major city, you have a variety of Western foods to choose from. And if you're living near international grocery stores or supermarkets that offer imported ingredients, then you can of course cook your own meals. Now for the 16th question to ask yourself, will I need to return home? It's important to identify what reasons you may need to come back home, because for a lot of expats in their situation, they're a lot better off spending a few months in the Philippines and then the rest of the year in their home country, pretty much living in the Philippines part-time. It could be family, it could be your job, or it could be certain benefits, but be sure to think about what reasons you may need to come back to your home country. Moving on to the 17th question, what type of accommodation do I want? Find out whether or not you desire to live in a house, apartment, or a condo in the city. You should always take into consideration what size accommodation you plan to rent out, and also what size best fits your preferences. Now for question number 18, what am I willing to sacrifice? If you plan on living in the Philippines permanently, you will inevitably have to sacrifice something for living in this country. Some of the most common sacrifices that expats make moving here is availability to certain restaurants and foods, relationships with friends and family, and a Western life you grew up and are used to having. The nice part about the Philippines is that in regards to living a Western lifestyle, you still have accessibility to that in the modern cities. But when it comes to familiarity of life and relationships from back home, this is often the hardest things that expats have to leave behind. As for the 19th question, that is, what hobbies will I have in the Philippines? Relating to a previous point, it's important to have some sort of activity or hobby to occupy you while you're here. For example, you can join a tennis club, you can go golfing, you can go hiking, or you can even just have a drink with some friends. Now for the 20th question to ask yourself, who will I keep in touch with from home? Of course, just because you leave the country doesn't mean that your relationships are completely severed from back home. It's advisable to still keep in touch with at least one person from your home country. Not only for someone familiar to socialize with, but also if you need help handling something out there in your home country. Now moving on to question number 21, if I have to leave the Philippines urgently, where will I go? Whether it be a nearby Asian country, Guam, or back to your home country, it's important to know where you'll go if you have to leave the country right away. Because if something were to occur similar to what happened when the lockdown started, then you may not want to get trapped in the Philippines. Now for question number 22, am I ready to adapt to the culture? Well, the answer to everybody planning on moving to the Philippines is of course yes. But though many expats say that they will adapt to the culture, few keep an open mind. So when moving to the Philippines, be open to what you see, stay level-headed, and also be willing to adjust to life here. Moving on to the 23rd question to ask, what are some other places to consider living? Other than your first destination of choice, are there any other considerable places that you want to live in the Philippines? If you ever don't like your first destination of choice or you lose interest, it would be helpful to have other places in mind. Now for question number 24, what is my monthly budget and will it be enough years out from now? Most of you have already identified your monthly budget, but the question is if it will last for you. A good rule of thumb is to expect to spend more than you think. So it's also worthwhile to add that prices in the Philippines aren't getting any cheaper either. So if you plan on living in the Philippines long term, then diligently plan out your retirement so that it will actually last you. Now for the 25th question to ask yourself, what will I dislike about the country? From what you hear online or things that you expect to see,
lalaban ako. Lalaban tayo.
think about a few things that you may dislike about the Philippines. By identifying these things, it won't be much of a shock when you get here and it'll be much easier to adapt to. Now for question number 26, what do I need to bring with me? Whether it be your summer wear, a certain type of backpack to keep all of your items safe, or anything specific to your personal needs like medicine, you of course have to plan out what you'll bring. Besides, this is general information you already know. Moving on to question number 27, what will be my mode of transportation? You can either take public transportation, you can hire an on-call driver, or you can buy a scooter or a car. For many expats that don't like taking Philippine public transportation, then buying or renting a scooter is the best option. So determine how you plan on getting around in the Philippines. Moving on to question number 28, do I have medical needs? It's important to consider any medications or prescriptions that you'll think you'll need, what health issues you may face, and if you need a specialized doctor. So if you struggle with ongoing health problems, then I wouldn't recommend living in the Philippines. Now moving on to question number 29, am I prepared for the heat and humidity? This is a basic question that everybody moving to the Philippines has considered. As we all know, the Philippines can get hot and we all have different tolerances to the muggy heat of the Philippines. So determine whether or not you're the type to be able to handle the heat of the Philippines. Now for the 30th and last question to ask yourself, what is currently stopping me from moving to the Philippines? If you're in the position to move at the moment and you really want to, then do it. Because if you wait 5 years out from now from moving to the Philippines, you do not know what can happen in those 5 years that can further prevent you from experiencing this country. For others, what may be getting in the way is being tied down to work, a house, or payments. Either way, whatever's stopping you from making the move that you've been planning on, this of course should be handled. So there you have it, savvy expats. Those are 30 questions to ask yourself before moving to the Philippines. Many of these were simplistic, common sense questions, but if you appreciate this list regardless, feel free to drop a like and subscribe. And so thank you for watching, savvy expats, and I'll see you in the next video. God bless.